On today's episode, I talk with Feda Adra, who is the CEO of Comlink. And Comlink now has some more strings to your bow. How do you describe Comlink?
So as an organisation, it's a charity and a not-for-profit. It can sound a little bit like we're your typical service provider. So where I feel like we are slightly different is we're actually looking at three pillars now of the organisation, not just our community services, which is one, services to the clients. The other one is research and development, and then there's information and education.
That's fantastic. Watch right through to the end. Feda talks about everything that's to do with innovation and global thinking, whilst holding the community firmly in a loving and supporting hand. Thank you.
Nice.
Hello and welcome to Stories from the Red Couch. I'm Robin Cook and today my guest is Feda Adra. Hello Feda.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
You've had a big day, haven't you?
I have.
Well, I'm hoping that we'll just talk about the things that you really love, which means that you're just going to feel comfortable and share those little pearls, which I know you've got, particularly around leadership and what you bring to that. Can you just give me an outline of maybe what you do and the leadership style that you bring to your work?
What I do now is very different to what I did, I guess, when I first had the role of CEO. So I don't believe you get into a CEO role and you get in there and you're suddenly taking care of the high level stuff only. So what I do now is very different. So I'll explain the stage that I'm at now, I guess.
That would be lovely.
So I like inspiring my team. I like coming up with new concepts. I look at global issues now. And how do I address them?
That's fabulous, because you're a local organisation, aren't you? But not just to the Sunshine Coast. You're actually a state organisation, aren't you?
Absolutely.
With a global focus. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and I don't want to be that person that says, okay, this is what I'm here to do, is provide these services. I actually want us as leaders, and I think everyone as a leader, regardless of their position, needs to look at what impact they can make. And we really do have the power. We often say, oh, well, that's not my job, or that's not my role, or am I really equipped to do this? And I believe that everyone can.
Absolutely. You've got a beautiful saying that you shared with us at the old ambulance station one night, and that is, what if?
Yeah.
How did you come up with that, and what's the idea behind that?
I started to think about what I was at the old ambulance station. I started to look at the board that was there and how everybody had such a beautiful role to play. And I saw the inspiration behind your thoughts, your ideas, and that was inspiring. And it reminded me of when I first joined the organisation and speaking to the founders. And they said to me, what if we started a service in Caloundra?
Fabulous.
So it started from that, and that's something I now do throughout the whole 14 years that I've been with the organisation. I say, what if, what else, where else? And
people come along with that? Does it help others to open their minds and think about?
Not straight away.
No, okay.
However, I have done this for so long now that people look at me like as if can we really? And then I deliver. And that's what they've been telling me. And now they're telling the new people that are working with me, oh, we've got a history of Feda coming up with these ideas, or what if we did this? And people thinking, no, that's not possible, we can't. And yet then we do.
I think that's brilliant, isn't it? Because it must be so exciting for people who have maybe lived or worked in an environment where they can't do things and have had that stifled out of them.
Absolutely.
Do you come across people who are suddenly feel a sense of liberation or enlightenment from that kind of thought?
Every day. Every new staff member I have initially says, is this for real? I feel empowered now. I can make that decision, I can create, I can think outside of what I've been told.
Yes.
And so initially they're not used to it, and it takes them a little while to adjust. But once they're in there and they see that my style is to empower them to, go out and create and be.
And do the best thing that they can do.
Yeah. And then they adapt really fast, and they notice change happens very quickly for the better. And so we change all the time, and now they're used to it. But anybody new, always, it just takes a little while to get over the shock.
Yes.
Of the what if.
Yeah. What kind of structure do you have in managing all of your people? So you're sitting at the CEO position. Is there a lot of middle management? Obviously people aren't being micromanaged, otherwise they wouldn't be able to do that. So do you have that sense of freedom within all of your levels and staff?
Absolutely. So I have a chief operating officer now.
Yes.
Never did before. And I had about 7 reports before that, the state managers, the CFO, and there's all the different levels of coordinator level, and every single one of them is unique to their role, and they are able and allowed to actually innovate regardless of their position.
Isn't that fabulous? What do you think is the social impact? Because you're working in aged care predominantly. Is it only aged care?
No.
Okay, so what other areas are you working on?
Younger people with disabilities.
Okay.
So we also deliver services, say, for local government. We're looking at addressing social isolation and loneliness at the moment as a separate issue altogether. So
because that's definitely on the rise, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes.
People in health that are like dialysis, dementia, and that doesn't discriminate.
No, of course. So what do you think the social benefit of that kind of a focus on elderly and disability has on the wider community?
The social benefit, I don't know if it has a social benefit. So you're saying, can you rephrase that question for me again?
With the, I think that it would be easier for us to forget our elderly and our disabled people because they are largely hidden. But you're bringing a high quality service to them as individuals.
Yeah.
Do you think that has a benefit for all of us in society because you're helping people like that?
I do believe that it does do that. However, it's not enough. I think it's a band-aid approach that we're taking.
Okay.
I want to see us target earlier on. See, we're not, as we get older, we don't get seen. So we're young, we walk the streets, people look at us, we're at the peak of our careers. We think we're just
invincible.
Awesome. Yeah. And then what happens is you get older and you get forgotten, you don't get seen. That's what my clients tell me.
Okay.
And the children don't see their parents. Society doesn't see people with disabilities. They actually don't want to give them eye-to-eye contact. Where with the older people, it's worse. It's completely not being seen. And I believe that our services are great for people that are not being seen. What I'm tackling now is creating an awareness campaign for older Australians.
So how do you think that, you're talking about earlier intervention in that. What kind of measures are you thinking of?
So I'm targeting age group, like let's say before you retire.
Yes.
So you're aware that will be you one day.
Yes, that's me.
Yeah, and you don't realise it until you're there, and I don't want it to be when it's too late. I believe we need education and we need information. We also need to continue to have our purpose. That's what ends up happening. We think, oh, I'm older now, my career's sort of over, I can happily retire, play golf, or whatever it is people want to do, more gardening. There's only so much gardening that you can do.
That's right.
And you don't want to ever lose your purpose. So if we had an awareness so that our older Australians continue to be respected, have a purpose, give back, regardless of their physical, abilities. And they can. They've got a history of...
Absolutely. Well, there's years and years of service and education and experience there that can't be replicated overnight, can
That's
it?
right. That's right.
So are you thinking about channels that people can go through to share that information that they have?
Absolutely. So channels, we don't know how we're going to do that yet. So we're in the planning phase. But we do know that we need some sort of media marketing campaign. We need a minister's backing. We need, we're talking about big picture stuff here.
Yes.
We don't want it to be just a social media campaign. We need a whole of government approach, and it's critical because we are going to be the majority of people in the future.
I know, and it is scary, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I feel that for myself in the sense that I'm 56 and I'm thinking, well, what will it look like in 10 or 20 years' time? And what do I need to do now that will secure that image that I have of a happier, healthier, older age?
Well, that pleases me, I should say I'm pleased to hear that because that is the target audience that I'm looking at. Government are not going to afford those services in the future. I don't want those services. I want to be independent.
Independent, absolutely.
Right, and we know that to have that is we've got to continue to have good purpose. We need to continue to move. We need to continue to eat well. We need to go back to nature and live our life where we're not consumed by just technology.
And the busyness of things.
Yeah. But still, we can include artificial intelligence and,
of course,
and a whole range of technology which will enhance our life.
Yes.
So a combination of that. And if we can get that right as we all get older, and if we have the information and I guess the support to do that, we're going to all, have a better life, I think, as we age.
I guess that there will always be roles for, retirement villages and aged care facilities. What other styles of living arrangements could we look at that might work? I have my own ideas, and I've been a share house person for most of my adult life, and I really like that concept. What kind of structures do you see that would support that style of housing?
Well, I was just talking to a staff member about that exact same thing.
Okay.
And we're talking about, acreage where there's lots of homes and then there's shared facilities in the middle, but they're not like retirement homes at all. They're amongst nature and even if we encourage our children to live with us and our grandchildren to live with us, and so that this becomes, they can go and they can come, and a grandparent is not something that suddenly moves in with you because they can't live by themselves anymore. So we need to connect people, and if they don't have children themselves, there are other people that would love to have that generation.
Absolutely. Well, I entirely agree with you, and there was a 25-acre property just across from here, and it was for sale for such a long time, and I kept thinking, it's a kilometre from the centre of Palmwoods, it's at the train, you can catch a bus, you can do all of those things. How ideal would it be for that style of housing, really?
Absolutely.
But I don't think it's an easy thing for people to wrap their heads around.
No, and I think it's not an easy thing for government to also implement. So we've got to look, it's got to not come just from us. We always say it needs a whole community, it needs a whole of government approach, and we need to start to, I guess, advocate for how we want our future to look. That's right. Instead of waiting for them to decide on our future.
Yes.
So I'm a big fan of doing futurism type work, and what is the future I want to see. And it's not just Feda personally. It is, I have experience with my own parents, I have experience with my children. I talk to clients every day, and the biggest problem is people live alone in a single dwelling and they don't see anybody.
That's right.
And of course they're going to get depressed. Loneliness leads to lots of other I guess, issues with their health, etc.
Absolutely. What sort of things inspire you?
I always say, what this disease to want to create a change because I want to help people. So the minute I see that someone has been helped, it inspires me to say, well, what else? What if? And it's not because it's just, it does feel good. But I believe that people are looking for connections, and that there is a lack of connection that's happening. So it inspires me when I start seeing people do things outside of what others tell them.
Yes.
They know the way they need to live, or I guess that's one thing. But I'm inspired by my garden. I'm inspired by nature. I'm inspired. I try and get back to nature, and that's what inspires me to do what I do in business, for example. If I'm ever lost, I sit amongst my tomatoes and cucumbers and stuff like that.
Fabulous. Well, I love that idea too. And you've just you brought this tree along as the thing on the table. So it's a swamp box. Tell me what you're going to do with that. It's a beautiful tree.
It's really pretty. So this got given by council.
Okay.
And said go grab a plant and plant it on your property. I've got 7.5 acres, so I have plenty of room to plant more trees.
Fabulous.
Mind you, I've got 4 acres of trees, just 4 acres of just pure rainforest there.
Isn't that wonderful?
Trees for me, and why I bought this tree as well, is because I've always wanted to live on acreage because I love trees. I just wanted to have just 2 or 3 trees around me. So I used to wish for a property that had 2, 3 big trees on there, because the properties I lived on had just, little shrubs.
Yes.
And I love that you can sometimes have a small vision for yourself, because we don't dream big enough, and I talk about this often, that we don't dream big enough.
Okay.
So my dream was to have a few trees, and I got 7.5 acres of trees. So what the universe wants for us is always more than what we want for ourselves.
Yes.
And so plants for me, I always put a message before I plant a tree in my garden, and it's always a message of what I want to see, what impact I want to see in the world, not about me. It's about the bigger picture. And I then love watching those things come true, and they always do.
And they do, always do.
Yeah.
I've certainly lived my life largely by those thought patterns as well. That's fantastic. Thank you, Feda. It's been so nice to chat with you.
Oh, thank you. It was lovely to be here.
Yeah. I just love the way that you interact with people and inspire, because I've been inspired by the work that you've done.
Thank you.
And I think that we are fortunate indeed to have your type of leadership in an organisation that supports and helps others in our community that may well have fallen through the cracks on so many levels.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
thank
you.
you. What we're doing now, we've got 3 new pillars starting.
Yes.
And it's community services, research, and information and education. Absolutely. For us to develop really great services, we need to do